Qualcomm is taking the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 Pro to another level, and this time we're talking about something we don't normally see on a smartphone chip: 5 GHz. Yes, Qualcomm's next-generation Oryon CPU is expected to reach clock speeds of up to 5 GHz. And if you've been following our previous videos about the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 Pro, this is actually very interesting because it lines up with the earlier leaks we talked about, where the Pro model was rumored to be tested around that 5 GHz mark. Now, Qualcomm itself is giving us more information about what it's doing with the next Oryon CPU, and honestly, this could be a huge upgrade for Android phones. Let's start with the biggest number: 5 GHz. A CPU clock speed this high sounds crazy for a smartphone, but here's something important. 5 GHz by itself doesn't automatically mean the chip will be the fastest. There is much more going on inside the processor. Qualcomm says its new Oryon CPU uses a fully custom design. In simple terms, Qualcomm has much more control over how the CPU works. Instead of simply taking a ready-made design and changing a few things, Qualcomm is controlling the CPU design and the way the whole CPU system works together. And that gives the company more room to improve both speed and power efficiency. But Qualcomm isn't only chasing higher clock speeds, it's also working on something called IPC. Don't let that name scare you. IPC basically means how much work the CPU can do during each clock cycle. So imagine 2 CPUs running at the same speed. If one can do more work during every cycle, that CPU can be faster without even increasing its clock speed. That's why this 5 GHz number is only one part of the story. If Qualcomm can combine a 5 GHz clock speed with better IPC, we could see a serious jump in real-world performance. Things like opening apps, switching between applications, browsing, editing videos, and heavy multitasking could all become faster. But there's another part of this chip that caught my attention: Oryon FlexCache. And this could be especially interesting for gamers. Normally, CPU cores have access to certain parts of the cache. Think of cache as a very fast storage area that sits close to the CPU. It helps the processor quickly get the data it needs instead of going somewhere slower. Qualcomm's new FlexCache changes how this works. Instead of giving each core a fixed amount of cache, different CPU cores can share a larger cache pool depending on what the workload needs. So if one core needs more cache at a particular moment, it can get access to more of that available space. And this could be useful for gaming. When you're playing a demanding game, the workload is constantly moving around between different CPU cores. If the processor can get the data it needs faster, that could help reduce small pauses and improve frame stability. So we're not just talking about higher benchmark numbers, we're talking about potentially smoother gaming. And multitasking could benefit too. Imagine playing a game while downloading something, running music in the background, and switching between several apps. A smarter cache system could help the CPU deal with those different tasks more efficiently. Now let's connect this back to the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 Pro leaks we've been discussing. We've already seen reports pointing toward a powerful new Oryon CPU, a new core layout, and possible clock speeds around 5 GHz. We've also seen early benchmark claims suggesting a huge performance jump over the current generation. But now Qualcomm is actually talking about the technology behind the next Oryon CPU. That makes the earlier leaks even more interesting. Of course, we still need to be careful. These are not final smartphone performance numbers. A chip running at 5 GHz doesn't mean every phone will constantly run at 5 GHz. Heat, battery life, cooling, and the phone's design will all matter. A gaming phone with a huge cooling system could potentially push the chip much harder than a thin flagship phone. And this is where things could really get exciting, because Qualcomm is expected to introduce two new Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 chips, the regular Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 and the more powerful Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 Pro. And based on everything we've seen so far, the Pro model could be the real monster. The big question is how much faster it will actually be in real-world use. Will the 5 GHz Oryon CPU deliver a massive CPU boost? Will FlexCache improve gaming? And how powerful will the new Adreno GPU be? We're going to get answers very soon. Qualcomm's Snapdragon Summit 2026 is scheduled for September 22nd to September 24th in Hawaii, so we're basically at the finish line. And if these leaks and Qualcomm's own hints are accurate, the next generation of Snapdragon chips could be one of Qualcomm's biggest jumps yet. 5 GHz CPU speeds, a new custom Oryon design, smarter cache sharing, and a major focus on gaming and efficiency. The Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 6 Pro is definitely looking like a chip worth watching. Now the only thing left is to see what Qualcomm has been hiding from us.